Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Capes and Lunatics episode. Well, the first Capes and Lunatics episode on the Southgate Media Group's Patreon channel. I am Phil from the Capes and Lunatics. And of course, you probably recognize my guest. He's all over the place. Mr. Rob Southgate.
I think you mean I'm all over the place in many ways. So thank you, Phil, for that introduction. So patrons, thank you so much. You're the ones getting to see this video. We will probably share some of the audio so people can kind of hear what they're missing, but not the whole thing. This is an exclusive to our Patreon channel. So here you go. What we're going to do first is we're going to have some of our different shows are giving us Patreon only episodes. Capes and Lunatics jump right into the fray with this special episode, which is so awesome, Phil. Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
Before we tell what we're going to do today, Phil, why don't you tell people what Capes and Lunatics is?
Well, the Capes and Lunatics and the Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks podcasts are very superhero-centric podcasts. If it's comic books, TV, movies, we basically cover it all. And we have shows within our two podcasts. So it's like we get very character-centric shows. We get more general stuff. We even have a show where Charlie and Maz review, streaming shows, which of course, WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier are big now. So.
Never heard of them. I'm kidding. Capes and Lunatics is like a mini network within our network. You have so many different shows. And then you also have ties to Nuff Said, and that's where like Full Stream Ahead usually airs. Yeah. Super Connectivity is on that thread. But we all consider that part of Capes and Lunatics as well. So there is just a ton of content just by subscribing to those three shows. Today, what we're doing is kind of a throwback episode. Phil asked me to come on to talk about Greatest American Hero. So we watched the first three episodes, and then I watched a little bit more, which we'll talk about. Phil, were you old enough for this show when it was out originally?
No, I mean, I was 3 when this came out, so I don't remember the premiere. I remembered bits and pieces because I think they must have replayed it sometime in the early to mid 80s. But then what really got me with this show was, I think it was the FX network would replay these in like the mid 90s. Like I remember, I remember coming home. What was it, middle school or high school? I'd come home and watch these in the afternoon after school. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm older than you. So I was, let's see, 12 or 13 when this came out. I remember when I was that age, we loved it. I remember my friends, Andy and Eddie, that lived across the street, we'd watch this, we'd talk about it like crazy. And then I remember us going bowling one time, and the theme song came on at the bowling alley, and we freaked out. We were like singing it and laughing and like, this is awesome. I haven't watched it since then. Oh. Now here's one thing that might explain where you saw it in the mid 80s. It lasted from 81 to 83, so it was just a 3-season show.
Yeah.
And then they tried to bring it back. It was going to be the Greatest American Heroine.
Mm-hmm.
Not heroin, although that might have helped. It was in 85. Is that right? Or 86. They tried to relaunch it. They made a pilot and it bombed. It was gone. But they did have William Catt. They did have Robert Culp back. Mm-hmm. They were on that pilot episode. I think William Catt was going to be stepping out of it, and Connie Selica as well. I think they were stepping out of it. Robert Culp was staying on. And they replaced the hero. They may have shown some episodes trying to build some interest.
Maybe.
That might have been what you saw. Yeah,
I do. Actually remember watching. Well, I have seen that, that pilot, because like I said, that rewatch I did in the 90s, they kind of, I guess, played that as like, the quote unquote final episode with him handing over that suit to someone else.
Yeah, I was reading about that. They said that on some of the syndication packages that they did include that as the final episode. Mm-hmm. And then, what was it? 2 years ago, they tried to relaunch it. Mm-hmm. And they called it Greatest American Hero, but it was going to be a female, which is what they were doing with the reboot, the sequel back then. It didn't get picked up. I think that's one of those that's buried in time. That was the same time they were trying to do Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman didn't work either.
Well,
Uh,
I guess it was ABC was trying to do it, and now I guess they passed on it, so it's like it's up for grabs, I guess.
okay, well, stay up for grabs. So, what did you think of it, Phil?
I mean,
You went back and watched the first three, right?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia in my, I'm seeing this through rose-colored glasses. I mean, it was all right. I mean, and again, it's a product of its time. Like a lot of the special effects, it's like, yeah, I could kind of see, you kind of see the green screen, and it's like, this wasn't made in, with HD TVs in mind and stuff back then. And
Yeah. Yeah. To quote Beavis and Butthead, these effects aren't very special. Although I will say, in the pilot, the UFO part is fantastic.
I thought I heard somewhere, I forget where I heard this. I thought at some point they said, you know how they created that special effect? They flew over some stadium that was all lit up at night, and then they just like flipped it and added some stuff to it.
That is really cool. Well, it was a great effect. I thought that looked really good. When it beamed down, that was pretty bad. But the ship rolling in and the shape of the ship and everything, I was like, wow, this is really cool. Him flying looks terrible.
Oh yeah.
The effects of Ralph are terrible. But you know what? It's a product of its time. I'm not going to criticize it for that, because that's what they had to work with, and they were staying within a certain budget,
And again, too, do you think it's like with superhero stuff, like in 1981, they're like, oh, we're going to get a bunch of kids with this. Kids aren't going to know better.
Yeah, probably. It kind of, it's weird, man. TV at that time, especially, you can't tell what their target is. For kids stuff, it's like anything for teenagers and below seems to be so stupid. It's almost like you're watching like Disney Channel.
Mm-hmm.
And then adult, they go into such a weird, like, I don't want to, I guess you could say inappropriate area so fast on these shows that you go, what? Or not inappropriate's not correct, but it's weird, man. It's weird. TV was very weird. And I do like some of the stuff from back then. I had said to you when we were going to do this, I was hoping Charlie would be on, because I guarantee Charlie Esser loves this show.
Oh, probably.
But Charlie, I'm going to put this out there because I know you're going to hear this. It's not good. I will say though, and I want to get your thoughts on this, but I want to throw one out there right away, so that you understand where I'm coming from. There was something I liked about it. There was something kind of charming about this, and the story had it was interesting. I was like, okay, I was kind of compelled to watch, but the dialogue was so bad. Robert Culp was so bad. And I mean, like, and I know people will argue with me and be like, "Oh no, he was great. He was the show." Oh no, his acting was awful.
Well,
he thinks he was in a comedy.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. I thought it was. I thought maybe it was a meta commentary, because it was at the end of the first one where he's like, "Oh, what am I on this team for?" And Connie Sellecca says, "Comedic relief."
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I think that's what he was trying to do. They were trying to capture the comedic elements he had on I Spy, whereas on I Spy, he was a lot more interesting. By this time, like, his delivery is weird. The way he says things and the dialogue they gave him. All right, sugar cake. All right, this. All right. Yeah, the whole time, here's looking at you, kid. I'm like, who wrote this? What is going on? And it was Stephen J. Cannell, who I was like, oh, he's famous. And then I started looking back, and he did like Rockford Files, which I remember liking back then. I also remember liking this back then. A lot of stuff he did was pretty, I mean, no offense, pretty hacky when you get into like quality of dialogue,
I mean, was he trying to do like a superhero vibe, and like maybe trying to make it different from his other shows?
I think he was trying to cash in on like a kitschy Batman-y type thing, set grounded in the Stephen J. Cannell universe. So it kind of felt like his other shows, where it's kind of that type of dialogue, but it was not well written.
No, again, maybe he was like trying to get the vibe of those Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and then add in some
Definitely.
Batman '66. Yeah,
Yep, definitely, definitely. And the '66, it wasn't as kitschy as that, but
yeah.
there was an element of it. Um, what did you think before we get into my thoughts on this?
Like I said, I mean, I loved it as a kid. It's again, it's like the weird, the not so good special effects, like you said, the dialogue. Like I like some of the character interactions, but just some of the dialogue they were given, I was just like, well. And again, as someone who didn't watch it, when it was brand new, I'm like, wait, was this how people talked in 1981?
No, it's not. But it is a weird time. I mean, I'm going to use the word boomer because that's so popular right now, but it is a product of that generation.
Yeah.
There's something about TV, popular pop culture stuff from that time that the boomers had kind of taken over and were making. So you can see a difference, in the 60s, it changed from the Robin Laura Petrie, which was the older generation, to the boomer generation making something a little bit different. And then as that generation got a stronger foothold, you got shows like this. You got shows like LA Law. You got shows, and LA Law was a great show. You got shows like Cheers. Like they were all products of that generation. This is a little before that, what I'm talking about, where it's caught a little bit more in that vortex where like the humor is weird, man. There's a lot of I'm not even going to say veiled like sexism and homophobia that's just like bubbling under the surface. The whole thing about how they react to him in the suit.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So a guy shows up and he's wearing this red suit and it looks funny, right? How about just thinking that's funny? Instead, they never said it outright. That was definitely making a comment which was homophobic. There was no question.
Especially,
and it kept going.
Yeah. Was that first episode where he's changing in the gas station room?
Really bad. And the guy's freaked out and he grabs his kid and then he's like calling the police because a guy's in a red suit, which was weird. And then the other thing that's weird about that is it did have the scene, which I did like when the kid first tells him, you got to take 3 steps and jump.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a nice little scene, but it makes no sense. The guy's calling the police. He's so protective of his kid. He lets the kid wander off and hang out in an alley with the exact guy he's calling the police about.
Yeah.
And you don't hear him in the background yelling, Jimmy. No, it was odd. Yeah. I'm going to point out another one that was, to me, the entire series, because I went back and I watched the final episode and Greatest American Heroine. Okay. Ralph's class. Now we get the setup that Ralph is a teacher, right? Yeah. He is an English teacher, correct?
I believe
he has been given a class that he says is a special ed class. First of all, maybe they are because they were all about 30 years old and they were in high school.
I was going to say they're pretty.
Maybe. But that's not what that class was. Those were all like delinquents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which doesn't make sense. They don't take all the delinquents and throw them in a classroom and say, you have to take this class. And then it made no sense. You never saw him teach. He'd say a couple of things and then the bell would ring. And I was like, what is this? And then he'd refer to them as his special ed kids. And I'm like, do they know what this is?
Yeah, I don't know.
And yeah, maybe they are because they were, like I said, about 30. Michael Perich looked like he was older than William Catt. It was very strange. And the weird Rhonda, like having the crush on the teacher, but it skated a line that I was very uncomfortable watching.
Yeah.
And that was something else they used to do back then too. There was a lot of that. I was like, wow, I know you're playing on the teacher's pet or she has the infatuation with the teacher, but it was skating into an area that was very uncomfortable for me. And then he got to box with Michael Perich in that pilot episode. He's like, "You want to take me on? Let's go in a boxing ring." I'm like, okay. Legally, I don't think any of your teachers could have pulled you into a boxing ring, Phil, and had an unsanctioned boxing match after school. But the gym teacher was there who knew nothing about boxing. And Rhonda's hitting on you. And like the whole thing, I'm like, what am I watching?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought those kids, the whole thing with the kids was just them showing, oh, he's such a nice guy. He's the teacher who won't give up on these kids when every other teacher has. And, it is very creepy. And it's just like, oh, maybe other guys might have taken advantage of this girl, but he wouldn't. And,
well, the other teacher. Yeah. The other teacher says, "Oh, you've got Love Me Rhonda in there." I'm like, what is this? How about you all should be arrested? And was Ralph a nice guy? Seriously, think about his character. Was he a nice guy?
I guess by 1981 standards, were they trying to? Right. Well, I mean, first episode, he walks in and throws a chair across the room.
Was that supposed to be his first day teaching there with those kids?
I don't know. I mean, at least early on, but I don't know if it's because they seem to know him and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
He didn't teach him. He walked in through a chair and told him, do this assignment. I'll see you tomorrow. And then he took him on a field trip for hours
to the desert,
out of nowhere. He didn't say, "Okay, everyone got their permission slips. Today we're doing this." No, he says, "Everybody, grab your stuff. We're going on a field trip." And I'm like, they can't do that. And then they jump in a car and they drive until it's pitch black out. Although they did stop at a diner to meet Robert Culp, who flashed a gun at them.
Oh, he points a gun at
Michael Perich.
Yeah.
What are we watching? What are we watching? Okay. I'm going to backtrack for a second, though.
Okay.
It sounds like I just absolutely hated it. I didn't. I mean, this is all terrible, and I don't want to revisit it. But I love B movies, especially movies from that time that are like pretty insane, because it's this thing. It's like you watch it and you can't stop. You just watch it and go, what were people thinking? What is going on? The acting is terrible. Like I actually like that, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's bad. Like I know full well this is bad.
Oh, yeah.
This was that, but I think it didn't know it was that, or at least it wasn't presented that way, which makes it so much worse. But there was something charming about the fact that it was a B movie we were watching, even the way it was shot. It was shot like crap. I mean, there are shots in here that I'm watching going, did they have a cameraman, or did they just hand it to their 30-year-old high school students to say, "Hey, shoot our film"? Well, seriously.
Again, I mean, I don't think they probably didn't have the budget it should have had, just because in 81, I don't think they knew what they had. Superheroes weren't the big business they are now. So it's like, oh, maybe we'll get some extra advertising dollars or something off the commercials or whatever. But
yeah, it must have been let's have a show that is family friendly, even though it is not.
Yeah, no.
But I think that's what they were thinking. Hey, here's a family friendly show. It's a little bit older, so it's going to hit a little higher demographic than Different Strokes. Maybe we'll get those middle schoolers and high schoolers. Wow. That's why it only lasted 3 seasons.
Well, I think they were like, let's try to cash in on the Christopher Reeve Superman stuff, but let's try to ground it and make it more real world. And
right.
Because he has that, he's fighting for custody of his kid in that first episode, which I think pretty quickly in the series, they pretty much like X out that kid. Every so often you might be like, oh yeah, I called him at his mom's house, but it's like you really don't see much of that kid going forward.
No. The other thing with the kid in the 3rd episode, the whole time he's trying to get to this court case, this court appointment,
to
get custody of this kid, and they get sidetracked. They drop it. By the end, there's no mention of him missing his court date where he's going to lose custody of his child.
Yeah.
I was like, what? If this is this important thing, all you made was having custody of MacGuffin, something to drive the audience's attention until the story gets going, or what? Like, I was like, what is going on?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I haven't, I got to rewatch again, but I think they phased that kid out before the first season's even over. It's just this episode, Bill's like, come on, we got to go. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. I got stuff to do. I have a kid. And he's like, oh, Bill's just like, oh yeah, I don't know if it's somebody from the FBI that's like watching his kid. It's just like, oh yeah, some stranger's going to watch your kid. Let's go.
Yeah. Weird. Yeah. Robert Culp. I mean, that was the writing for him was terrible, and his performance, I know he was just going for an over-the-top scene stealing, like let's chew the scenery comedy FBI guy. But my God, it's unwatchable.
I mean, you kind of have to go over the top with that kid, with that dialogue they gave him. I mean, don't you have to kind of try to be over the top?
You do. But he was an executive. He was a producer on this, I believe.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. Well, that's how it works. When you have somebody who's already established, they'll give them a producer credit to get them interested. That way they get a little extra back end money, things like that. But if you're going to have that role, you should be able to say, hey, can we fix the dialogue? Can we work on Bill Maxwell a little bit? Because he was just a one-dimensional joke the whole time, and I wasn't laughing. I was really like, oh. Now, it's weird. I did not think that Ralph was a nice guy. I found him to be a bit of a jerk. But this is going to sound weird. I really liked William Katt playing this character. I thought that was an actor's choice. I thought that William Katt came into it. When you're acting, there's a lot that you do when you're figuring out your character, when you're analyzing scenes, when you're breaking stuff down. I think that he made the choice to not make Ralph just a nice guy. I mean, here's the guy whose wife divorced him and took his kid. He's been put in this special ed class, but he's not a special ed teacher. There's a lot of things going on here that I think William Katt looked at and said, well, why? Why this? Maybe he's not a purely nice guy, which is interesting because if you go to the Greatest American Heroine, one of the reasons he loses the suit in that one is because his ego gets in the way and he becomes a celebrity.
Well, yeah, the whole world finds out about him. And
right.
They show him like guest starring on Saturday Night Live or whatever.
Oh, that was awful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and even Connie Selico, who actually genuinely, her character is nice. I think that she calls it out like, man, your ego is nuts. Here's the other thing. In the 3 episodes I watched, he flirted with how many women?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, right in front of Connie Selico, the mobster. Oh, that was awful. That was awful.
With the hit car. Yeah.
Yeah. And the hit car. I actually thought the car was kind of cool. I was like, this is kind of an interesting 70s move.
Yeah, like an armored car with like a slot for the gun.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. And the way they played that out. But the oh my God, the acting was terrible.
Yeah.
And the writing was terrible in that one. And like the caricature, I mean, here she is. She has to do this, this mob girlfriend, and she goes right into that voice from Singing in the Rain, and which was great in Singing in the Rain, not great here. And I was like, oh, everything's so stereotypical. And like even like when he's on the bus and he's sitting there in his suit, and like the black guy doesn't just say like, okay, I'm getting out of here. He has to go like, hey man, that's a jive suit. And I'm like, oh my God, every word, and Ralph just, he was not just uncomfortable with his role of getting the suit and everything. He was a kind of a jerk about it.
Yeah.
He was a jerk to Connie, and they played with that idea of the simple misunderstanding a lot, where my parents are coming. You've got to meet my parents. Oh no, something came up. Oh, Ralph, I'm mad at you. But then, oh my gosh, you're turning invisible. I understand. It's a simple misunderstanding. I was like, yeah. And then he did the weirdest thing in that episode with the parents. Let's talk about that episode for a second. He meets her at the restaurant. He's been turning invisible. Those that haven't seen it, a new attribute of the suit comes up that he turns invisible and he can't control it. He's supposed to be meeting Connie's parents for the first time. I'm getting to them. And he calls her and he says something came up, like I can't do it. She's mad at him. And then it turns out he's in the restaurant right next to her, invisible. And he explains this to her. And then all of a sudden, boop, you can see him again. And he goes, she's like, oh, Ralph, I don't know what we're going to do. And I'll just have to lie to my parents, but this is terrible. And I'm getting really tired of this. Well, you got 2 more seasons of it, honey. That was a Bill Maxwell reference, by the way, saying it, calling her honey. Yeah. My God. Everybody, honey, sweetie. Oh my God. So he says, this is the part. He goes, you've got problems. I have to get through this restaurant and not get seen. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, okay, Ralph. And she goes back to her parents. What does he do, Ralph? Or what does he do, Ralph? Phil?
Hey, does it? Wait, what does it? Wait, what does he do?
He pretends he's an actor.
Oh yeah. He keeps.
I'm doing the play Man and Superman, and he does this whole thing, and people laugh and clap, and her parents are like, oh, okay. First of all, not inconspicuous. Second of all, if you watch that scene when he's telling her, you've got problems, I've got to get through this whole restaurant and not be seen. He is literally standing next to a door with a giant red exit on it. Hey, dumbass, turn around.
Oh, there's so many discrepancies in this series. I mean, later on, he gets a second instruction book after he loses the first one. He loses that one too, and then when he asks in Greatest American Heroine, he asked them for another book for the whoever's going to replace him, and they're like,
yeah, and they go, we only had 2.
I'm thinking,
really?
Okay, you've mastered interstellar travel. You've made this,
and you don't have a hard drive.
No, and you can't like print up a couple pages of a book. Yeah.
Zevon, get over there with our copier. We're out of ink. Well, I guess we only have 2 copies of the book.
We can make a super suit that endows people with powers, but we cannot give you a book. Make another book for you.
Yeah. I did like that premise, though. I didn't think I was going to like it as much getting into it.
Yeah.
I was having fun with that part of it. Like I said, there's something about it that I was like, I could see why you'd want to reboot it, but I guarantee when they reboot it, it's going to miss that charm element, and it's going to become garbage.
And doesn't it seem like he only pulls out that suit when he needs it? I'm like, especially if you didn't have that instruction book, wouldn't you be out there on weekends and whenever you had a free moment trying to like master some of its powers or discover things about this suit?
Well, in season 3 or episode 3, that's what Bill was doing with him. He said, this is one time Bill like had a brain cell. He says, hey, on the weekend, sugar pie or whatever he called him, let's go out into the desert and we're going to try practicing, landing and flying. And, kid, we're going to do this. And that's when they find the fighter jet. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. How about the parents? Now the mom, Connie's mom is, what's her name? June, whatever, from Lost in Space.
Yeah.
And she was fine. She was just a hired gun that day. And the dad, he's been in a ton of stuff, but he was a creep. Like all he obsessed about was hardware. He had a hardware store. Okay. It's Howard Cunningham. We get it. Everything's hardware, well, Ralph could quit teaching to become a hardware man. Like, really? This guy worked to become a teacher. What? He can't have the career that he's chosen, but if you watch him, especially when they first get there, he's creepy with Connie. The actor like stares at her a little too long, dismisses his wife when she talks, the way he talks to Connie. And I'm like, if you did this now, it would be all over the internet making memes of this creepy interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not what was going on, but damn, it felt like it. And it was weird. And then they dropped that. Thank God. I mean, I don't think that was part of it. I think that was just something that I kept seeing, but I saw it multiple times. I was like, what's going on? Then it went into him being one-dimensional. All they cared about was the hardware and that that guy in the red suit. I'm like, oh my God, give it a rest. And the mom's only contribution was, I thought he was kind of cute. I'm like, you have this actress that is accomplished on here, and you give her dumb lines like that, and she does nothing with them.
I think
what could she do with them?
I mean, I think the problem is we're in the era of like, that Incredible Hulk TV show, which was better than this, but it's like, they they had a formula for these shows at this point. It's like, Bill Bixby transforms at least twice an episode. We got to get at least 2 scenes of Ralph flying. I don't think they were worried as much about the story and dialogue. It's like, oh, hey, we got to throw in some superpowers for the kids.
Absolutely. And in fact, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this was a reaction, yes, to Superman, but more so to the success of the Incredible Hulk, which was a huge show for a couple of seasons. And as that was waning, I have a feeling they went, hey, this superhero thing there is an interest here. And this was a clever idea, and it wasn't one that was getting done in the comics. And then the episodes felt just like, once again, B-level comics. Why is like every episode, now we're dealing with the mob. Now we're dealing with, this cartel. Now we're dealing with, spies in Russia. And I'm like, how much of this stuff is going on within 5 miles of that school? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, I think that was like the other that's the other reason Bill Maxwell was there. He was like the plot device where it's like, hey, if there's no trouble 5 miles within the school, Bill Maxwell's going to find us some trouble to get into.
Sure. Did he answer to anybody?
Well, I think they said he was wasn't he like kind of like the Maverick,
You still getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
They're still going to say, hey, Bill, what are you investigating? We need you to go out and do this, instead of like, I disagree with everybody, sugar, and I'm going to go out there and, hi, kid, I'm going to do this. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, actually,
it made no sense.
Well, like in the 4th episode, like he had to go in for, I guess they were like giving all the FBI agents like every so often they had to go in for a mandatory lie detector test and stuff. And the question he couldn't pass was, has anything weird happened to you in 6 months or in the last 6 months or something? And
okay, I didn't watch the 4th episode. I'm telling you, it was like pulling teeth.
Yeah, that's about as far as I got. But yeah, but then there was like this Russian couple that everybody in the bureau was looking for, and like he finally, with Ralph's help, he finally brings them in, and he's like calls his director, and he's like, if I bring these people into you, can we just like say I never have to take another lie detector ever again? And the director's like, I've had all my best people out there. How could you find them? He's like, no, well, that's the deal. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about this show. The world building is the part that's interesting. I just realized the part that I keep saying was charming or I was interested in was the world building. The stories I could give a crap about. I watched the final episode, not the heroin one, but the other one. And it was ridiculous. And then I got to and it was bad. But then I got to the end and I was fast forwarding, and then all of a sudden I see the aliens, and I'm like, oh, we get to see the aliens. They're on the ship. He and Bill are on the ship. The aliens lay out a little bit of plan. And I was like, even though the alien effects were god awful. Mm-hmm. I mean, they didn't even look like Muppets. They looked like rubber socks. I like how the lead guy, the one who comes out, is just a mask. The mouth won't move. And then if you watch the heroin episode, the reboot, they see the aliens and his mouth moves now. And I'm like, oh, they got better masks.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The acting in that, though, the acting of the alien, because, he can't just sit there and be stoic. The actor had to like make gestures and do this. And I'm like, oh God, man, you're just trying to make sure you're getting your time on camera. It was so obvious. I'm saying all this, but I still say from a geek fandom perspective, I do think this is kind of like your geek homework. I think you need to watch the pilot. It's an hour and a half. You'll be mad at me when you do. But I do think you should watch it. And then maybe spot watch a couple of things. I couldn't get through whole episodes. I would start them or I'd jump in. I'm like, man. But then when I went to that end one, I made it about 10 minutes and I was like, I can't do this, but I got to see, do they end it or not? And they actually kind of did. I don't know if it was canceled, if they knew it was canceled, or if it was canceled after that, but they kind of wrapped it up. Kind of.
Did they end it or not?
Yeah, end it or not. Oh no, Phil. But the scene with the aliens, I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. They laid a little world building in. The best part there was when it showed all the aliens or whatever they were laying in those things, which was really a bad effect. But when they came back and Bill says, I get it. Those pairs, those are our replacements. I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea that they're always going to have a pair. Although those two guys weren't in stasis as a pair. Yeah. So what was that about? And where was his partner that was dead, that was brought back to the aliens? Like all that was just
I know that was so weird in the first episode. It's like, okay, yeah, his partner gets killed and gets taken up into the spaceship because he's the one who brings the suit down to them in that first episode. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't think we ever do that again either. I'm like, wait, well, they're just
and that was kind of an interesting little thing.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about the replacements, there's a season 2 episode where like they meet these two old guys who were like, I guess were their predecessors. They were like the first ones on Earth. They,
oh, really? I didn't see any of that.
Yeah. No, there were these two old guys. The one was like the one was like a millionaire or billionaire. Yeah, he was like I think he was the Ralph, and he had like his own FBI agent and stuff. Yeah.
Interesting. But I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Oh, the trip. You want the trippiest episode, the weirdest one. It's another season 2 episode. Ralph and the kids are like fixing up like this abandoned house.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a doorway. It's like their supernatural episode. It's like there's a doorway that leads to, I think they said it's the 4th dimension. And there's something in there that like it can't mess up the suit, but it can like reach through the suit, I guess, and like rip Ralph up.
I heard when I was reading about it, didn't hear, I read that it gets into some stuff like there's some magic stuff. There's stuff with like leprechauns or something. There's like all sorts of weird stuff that happens in that 2nd and 3rd season.
I can't
like they run out of the superhero stuff and they start doing all this other junk.
I can't remember. I got to rewatch more of them, but I remember this episode because the 4th dimension thing's bad enough, but then Bill gets possessed by this woman ghost, and Ralph has to take him back through that door into the 4th dimension and fight whatever's in there that's ripping him up.
Weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
I always remember that one because it's like the trippiest one I think I ever saw out of this series.
Yeah, I remember watching the first season when I was a kid, and I loved it, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe that's the key. Maybe you got to be that age to really connect with this. Although I wouldn't want Molly watching this because of all the weird homophobia and sexism that's like just running rampant across this thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, it would be like a history lesson. It'd be like, yeah, this was bad TV. This is,
Yeah, this is more like what I said. It's more like your geek homework.
Yeah.
For the more mature geek. There are certain things like that I say, yeah, it's worth seeing. There's some interesting ideas. You might have some fun with it. Just realize it's a product of its time.
Oh yeah.
And you can be honest. You don't have to like it. It's got some big problems, but man, the dialogue is just awful. Ralph is kind of, like I said, he's a jerk, but he's kind of the glue. I liked William Catt in this role. I hated his hair. My God.
I mean, as the seasons go on, you saw it got smaller too.
Yeah, but in the beginning, it's outrageous. He was in a movie. He was in the movie House, which was also really bad. And it's funny because a lot of people, because I like a lot of like B horror movies too, and a lot of people that I talk to in that world love that movie, and they're like, "Oh, William Catt, that movie is awesome." I don't know what movie they saw. It's not awesome. And William Catt, again, feels in it like he doesn't look like a leading man, right? He doesn't have those looks. He doesn't act like that, but I think he's an actor out of time. If he was an actor at the age he is in this now with better hair, I think you'd see him in a lot more, and I think he'd get better parts because he's actually not bad.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's like this weird anomaly, and they put him in House, not good. They put him in Butch and Sundance the early years, which once again, when I was a kid, I thought was really cool. I liked that movie a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd like it now. Probably not. It didn't get great reviews. But I remember liking him. I think it's him and Tom Berenger played Butch and Sundance. It's a weird combo. And like I remember seeing it and thinking, well, I like the two guys. I mean, they weren't Newman and Redford, but they were cool. That's the other thing. Notice all the references are, this is how I know it's a boomer show, right? All the references are to monster movies from the 50s.
Yeah.
TV shows from the 50s, maybe the 60s. Movies, the movie stars that they like what's his name? Tony idolizes Marlon Brando. And I'm like,
I know.
Sure. But no high school kid at that time is worshiping Marlon Brando. They're worshiping John Ritter, or they're worshiping, somebody like that. They're worshiping. They're not even worshiping Telly Savalas. They're worshiping Roger Moore at that time. That's who he'd be talking about. Not going back. And then they would all make references like, oh, this is because they were putting on a play. That was god awful too. That made no sense. And he was like, oh yeah, it's like the Brando movie. Oh yeah, Elizabeth Taylor. All they talk about are these stars that the people that were the boomer age at that time, that were probably in their 40s, would have remembered from then. It's like if we get talking about, Last Starfighter and the Goonies as if they're current.
Yeah.
They're not. Those are old movies. And yeah, we know that the older people might appreciate them more, but the high schoolers, no way. When I was in junior high, William Catt was awesome because he was on this. By the time I hit high school, if you said William Catt, people probably went like, who? 2 years later. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way they were all into those old movies. All of them, please.
But yeah, I mean, do you think William Catt, he just got typecast into certain genres, right? Like sci-fi, horror.
Yeah, which is okay. I'd love to be typecast in that as well.
Oh, yeah.
He was in Carrie. He was good in Carrie.
Yes.
I liked him in Carrie, which is funny. His hair is terrible in that too. But if you rewatch that film, he gives a pretty good performance. Sissy Spacek, of course, owns that movie. Yeah. She's spectacular in it. And she was really young. My God, she's spectacular in that. But for a guy he was probably in his mid-20s at that point, he was a trained actor. You could see it. You could see it in this too. He was a trained actor. He was doing his homework. I think he made a choice that Ralph was not a great guy.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think he I don't know if he probably saw it. It's like they wanted him to be this super nice guy to show, why Ralph got chosen for this suit. But he's probably like, this guy kind of has to have a backbone too. Can't be.
Yeah. I got backstory out of what I was watching with him. I got that there was something else going on with him. Connie Selica, she was serviceable. I didn't get that there was anything more other than she's, a lawyer and his girlfriend, and she's intimidated by her parents. And, oh, Ralph. I was like, okay, she's serviceable. It's too bad. I like to have characters to have more dimension, but I would rather watch scenes with her and Ralph than I would any day with Robert Culp at this point, because I could barely watch him in this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other side. I was going to say the other side that William Catt's a great actor. It's like just the dialogue and some of the choices they made with this show. I mean, I think his performances were a big part of what made these like bearable.
Yeah, other than when he was being goofy and flying and stuff.
Oh,
yeah. The faces he made and all that, I was like, oh, this is really bad.
I'm sure they told him to do that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, no, amp it up.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's actually kind of the worst part with him. I did like him discovering the powers. I did like him having them out of control. I thought like he had some nice moments, like when he first becomes visible again, when he's in the car and he like pops open and his hand is up like this, and he kind of like looks at his hand like, "Oh, I'm back."
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh, that was actually pretty cool." The scene when he was coming back when he was talking to Connie, though, you see his feet appear, and you can totally see that it's a wipe that they're wiping up off a green screen. That was awful. And she doesn't even react like, "Ralph, I only see your legs." It was just like, I don't know, man. It was bad. Woo. It was bad, but it's good geek homework. It's worth watching the pilot.
Oh yeah.
And then having a little fun, maybe get to the last episode and watch the aliens. And they were in it before that too, right? That wasn't the first time we see the aliens.
Yeah. Because I forget what season it was. It season 2 or 3. Yeah, like they come back. Yeah, because they get up on that ship and they give Ralph or did they get up on the ship? But I know they give Ralph a second book, and then he's practicing with he's like, "Oh, look at all this stuff," and he tries shrinking down. He shrinks down to like insect size, and then he's like, "Oh, I can't grow back up. I can't grow." When he finally grows up, he leaves the book at like. They're in the middle of the desert, and he leaves the book still like microscopic down there and like the sand and stuff. He's like, "Oh, of course, Bill's like, oh, you know the book?"
Yeah. That's actually okay.
Yeah.
It's dumb that they don't have multiple books, but that's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. If we go at it as those concepts are for a kid's show,
yeah,
I'm all right with that. It's Gilligan's Island at that point.
And again, it was kind of different for that time period because everything at that point, it was like everything you had seen in the movies, like Batman, Superman, it's just like, oh, they're perfect from day one. Yeah, this was something different for that time.
Yeah, like I said, as a concept, kind of interesting. His symbol is interesting too. I read that it's if you look at his symbol, it is a direct copy of a symbol from one of the bad guys in the movie Thunderball.
Oh,
it also Stephen J. Cannell said that no, it's supposed to be a needle and thread because it's the book and a needle. So it's the suit is the needle sewed the suit and the book has the instructions. That was the idea. But it looks exactly like the one from Thunderball. But then I also read if you look at the symbol I think it's in China, in the name of the show, this is one of the symbols that means fly or something, which is really interesting. And then there was something about Sweden about how it's the name of the show was The Man Who Could Fly, which was or a man flies or something, which was the direct translation of the Chinese one that had the symbol. So there's a lot of little interesting things like that. But Stephen J. Cannell was like, no, it's a book and a needle. It's like, it probably was.
Yeah.
Because that was about how thought out some of this stuff was. But I liked it. I liked that. I liked the design of the suit, even though it looked weird. I thought, especially at that time, like as soon as you put people in tights, it looks terrible. And I thought for a made up superhero thing that they were creating, I thought they did a really nice job of that. I didn't like it as much when they did the Greatest American Heroine, though. Same suit, but if you watch that, they made his suit this like shiny metallic. When they showed him in it, it didn't look as good. And for hers, it was the same suit, but they got rid of the boots. You know how he has those like the boots and then his shoes are under the boots?
Yeah.
They got rid of the part that goes over the calf. So she just looks like a jazz dancer from college. Like I was like, what is that? And then she's like, oh, this would be better if it had pumps. And I'm like, what? No, it wouldn't. That is so dumb. Yeah. And I'm not saying she was dumb. I'm saying the writing was so dumb.
Writing, yeah.
So, they take a 3-year hiatus. They come back and I wouldn't say they forgot how to write the show. They remembered exactly how to write the show. Terrible.
I mean, again, they probably did certain stuff to that suit because she was a woman, but it's like, part of it too was probably like, oh, we want to show a visual difference between her and Ralph, and
but the rest of it looked the same.
Yeah.
Although they did have their sexist comment when she put it on. She's like, "Doesn't this fit great?" And Ralph's like, "Yeah." And Connie's like, "Ralph," and I was like, "You know what?
He's like married at that point too."
Right?
Really?
Right, but I'm telling you, every episode I saw, he was like a lech.
And if you're gonna do that, have Bill do that. I mean, he's the one with no wife or girlfriend. It's like,
right,
if you
right.
have to do that, I mean, it's horrible as it is, but it's, if you're gonna have one character do it, why not have Bill do it?
Get that teacher with the really bad hair. You thought Ralph had bad hair? That original teacher. Woo! Get him to come in. He was the one that made the creepy comment about Rhonda. Let him be like, hey, come in and do that.
Well, that's school. Like you said, isn't Ralph supposed to be an English teacher? I mean, they basically let him do whatever he wanted with those kids, field trips, whatever kind of project. And it's just like, oh yeah, as long as you don't let them burn down the school, yeah, you can do whatever you want with those kids.
Yeah, he's an English teacher, and he makes reference to that a number of times. But the one time you see him like ending a lesson, it was social studies. He was doing he was talking about politics.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't get that in an English class. And is he an English teacher or a special ed teacher? Do they have other teachers throughout the day that they work with, or is it only Ralph? Because it seems like they have 1 hour in class and it's with Ralph, and then that's it. And then the rest of the time is them like pretending to fight, and I'm sure they had to like pay their mortgage and work out their part-time job because they're all 30.
Either kid.
The one had to get their patch to get off cigarettes, and just like all the things going on with those messed up 30-year-olds. It was odd, man. It's an odd show.
Yeah, it just made it seem like school is an hour a day, so it's like, so it didn't interfere with his superhero activity.
So what are your thoughts? Do you think this is something people should watch?
I think if you're a fan of the superhero genre or like sci-fi, or even just like in this era of television, I'd say it's worth at least one rewatch. You'll probably never come back to it, but yeah, I'd say give it a try. Don't expect Shakespeare from this, but just
except in episode 3 when they do Shakespeare.
Oh, they do Shakespeare, yes. But yeah,
although we never see him do it.
Oh yeah, no, just don't expect MCU quality from this.
No. Yeah, this is I do contend, once again, pilot episode, figure it's a movie, have fun with that, and then fast forward a couple of times just to see some of the stuff. If you want to watch the second episode, it gives you an idea of what the series is. But man, if you can make it through a whole season, you have a much stronger constitution than I do. But watching that ending, seeing those aliens, I was like, it was terrible, but it really capped this series.
Yeah.
And it made me want more of the storyline. I wanted them wiped out and to have this kind of idea go on. But I'm telling you, if they rebooted it, I could smell it even on this. It was not going to be good.
Why I was thinking, especially with that Greatest American Heroine, it's just like, couldn't you do a series about the suit, and like every season or every other season you replace who's in the suit? So it's like every season the cliffhanger, it's like, does our hero get out of this season alive or not? Because they're going to get replaced in a season or two.
Yeah, actually, you could kind of tell Doctor Who stories in a superhero universe. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
The problem is, I don't want to see them doing the same gag, which if it was these people doing it, they're going to do the same gag every time. Oh, he's just learning to fly. Oh, he's just learning he can do this. Oh, let's throw in a new power. By the end, this character would have every power ever conceived of and be ridiculous and still not know how to use any of them. And that would be bad. But I do like the idea of telling stories with this idea of they lost the suit or the instructions. They cannot figure this thing out. Yeah. And they get just so far that it works, and then when things happen, they happen accidentally. And it's like, oh my God, but don't show me something every episode. Don't show me something all the time. Tell me a good story. Tell me a good story each time. And then have the mythology over the top of it. That would have worked really well. If they were going to do that in the new reboot, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, but
just looking at it, I felt like, no, this is going to be more garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you need to do that same gag again, where it's like, oh, I don't know how to use the powers. But if you like switch up the lead every couple seasons, it's like, again, one season you have a man, so next time you have a woman, then maybe you have a teenager, then you have a senior citizen, and maybe that's the theme of the show. It's like,
that would be awesome.
How do these different people come to the powers. It's like, how do they use them? How do they learn them?
And get American out of the title.
Yes.
I love that idea of it switching like that.
Oh, yeah.
And once again, treat it like Doctor Who. When Doctor Who regenerates, the first episode of them as the Doctor, sometimes you see that learning curve a little bit. Yeah. But by the second episode, the learning curve's over. They're the Doctor again. Like, oh. So the way you get around that for this is the memories get transmuted to you. So like that first episode when they get the suit, maybe you see one where it's kind of downloading in them and they're kind of realizing what's happening. They still don't know how to use the suit, but they know, hey, I know that it does this. I know this can happen. But this suit has control, kind of like Venom. When Venom first appeared, and you're like, what does it do?
Yeah.
And it kept happening for a long time. You didn't know what was going on. That would be cool.
Maybe instead of an instruction book, you get like some kind of holographic journal where, all the past users like, well, this is what I did. This is how I did this. Maybe don't do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I think it'd be interesting, just different. And like you said, it doesn't even have to stay in America. I mean, to go all over the world.
Yeah. Well, the name would have to change.
Oh, yeah.
I think that hindered it too. And at the time, I get it. That's what they were going for. But I think if you were to remake it now, I think that limits you in a lot of ways. And it also seems very politically motivated.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't watch it.
Well, was it season 1 or was it season 2? Weren't there at least a few episodes where they changed his name from Hinckley to Hanley just because?
Oh, that was what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
It's episode 3 is when it happened.
Yeah.
So at the time, this was when Ronald Reagan was shot by John Hinckley.
Hinckley, yes.
So they did 2 episodes where he is Ralph Hinckley. In the 3rd episode, watch the parents. The mom, they're at the airport, and she says, Ralph, and you don't hear her say it. You hear a plane go, and she goes, what a nice name. Sounds like every school teacher.
Oh, jeez.
Her mouth moved. She said it. And I remember at the time, that was something that people were talking about was, oh my God, it's the same name as the guy in Greatest American Hero. What are they going to do? Because that was a big hot button.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be like, his name is Ralph Bin Laden. And then it's like, we can't have Ralph Bin Laden be the lead of this show this week. So they X'd it out. And then I think it's in the 4th episode, Michael Perich calls him Mr. Hanley.
Mm-hmm.
And then they call him Hanley for a while. And I think they go back to Hinckley. I can't remember.
Eventually they do. I couldn't remember how long they went with that. But yeah, they eventually do.
But yeah, they only call him by his last name a few times, and they go with Hanley for a while. Now, I didn't watch it on here. I didn't watch it on Amazon. I don't know if they've gotten rid of that dub or not. But watching it in real time back then, the rest of the first season, he was Mr. Hanley.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting too.
Oh, yeah.
But it was that 3rd episode. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this is when it happened. Well, because it's very obvious that they put that plane noise over his last name.
Oh, yeah. Especially a show named Greatest American Hero. And it's, named after the guy who shot the president. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right. Well, those are my thoughts on this. Do you feel like you talked it out, Phil?
I think so.
Great. So this was a Patreon-only episode. Thank you to our patrons. Once again, you are awesome. And this was just for you. We're not going to post this across all of our other, areas. Like I said, we may put like a 5-minute chunk on Capes and Lunatics and somewhere else to let people know it's here. But the reality is this is made for you, the patrons. We appreciate you so much. And we're going to keep creating stuff. Our goal is to make this almost the Patreon channel almost like an SMG radio station where if you subscribe, you get all this original content that is only ever going to be here. And Phil will be back with other things. Yeah, that's it. Oh, we've got so many exciting new shows coming too that are only going to be here. I'm super excited for it. So Phil, thank you for having me on. This was fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for talking to me. And yeah, if anyone wants to hear more Greatest American Hero or some other television series, let us know.
And Phil, why don't you give your social media and that, let people know where you're at, and encourage them to go to the website because now we have a cool website for you.
Oh yes, Capes and Lunatics. I mean, besides all our social medias, which I'll tell you about, but yeah, we have our own page. Well, Capes and Lunatics and Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks have their own pages on the new and improved Southgate Media Group website. So we could find all our episodes and links to our social media there. But also, I mean, you could find. I mean, we have basically social media accounts for all of the various shows we do on the two podcasts. So you can also find links at Linktree, linktr.ee/Capes and Lunatics. And again, if you have suggestions for us to do a topic, whatever, email us capesandlunatics@gmail.com.
Molly would love to come on Capes and Lunatics. My daughter Molly would love to come on Capes and Lunatics to talk about Scott Pilgrim with you at some point.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to make that happen.
So invite her on. I don't know if you want to use it on Patreon, if you want to use it on the regular show, but this kid loves Scott Pilgrim.
Oh yeah, we're gonna definitely have to make that happen somewhere.
Cool. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
And thank you, patrons.